All right, for today's lecture, we're going to look at LiveData as part of the view model architecture in Android Studio. And we're going to put this into our pizza order example for this assignment. So here we're going to look at this overview of this architecture. This is the Android documentation for this. Okay, so let's kind of go through this LiveData overview. So Google says that LiveData is an observable data holder class. And it's lifecycle aware, meaning it's aware of your app and the different parts of your app, so your activities, whether or not your activities are awake or working or not, the event model and that sort of stuff. So if an activity is destroyed during this life cycle, it won't update information in that destroyed activity. If it's not on screen, it won't update it and stuff like that. So using LiveData will ensure that our user interface matches our data state. We'll use this observer objects to watch the LiveData and work for changes. There's a number of other active issues. So again, sometimes in previous versions of Android, we'd have problems where activities would be stopped and we'd then update them, try to update them in the background, and our whole app would crash. So this whole thing is much more organized now. So let's look at how we're going to work with this LiveData. So there's basically 3 steps to do. First, we create an instance of LiveData to hold whatever data we want here. And this is usually done in our view model class, and that's where we're going to do it. Then we're going to create an observer and define an onChange method here. And then we're going to tie the observer to the data, the live data in the view model, so that whenever the data changes, the observer's onChange method will be called automatically. The observer and the onChange method will be in the main activity for this. So let's kind of walk through that, give some samples code here. So first, creating a LiveData objects, and make sure you switch this from Kotlin to Java. We're going to be working, of course, with Java here. And this is the main part here, and they just work with a string, and they're working with names. And it's a mutable live data object. So rather than just saying it's a private string, they add this mutable live data, and that's what you have to do to make any sort of data that you have. If you want it to be observed and other people know about it's changing stuff, you have to add this mutable live data basically wrapper around it. So let's look at that. So we're going to go back to our pizza class in our main view model here, and we're going to have a order status string that's going to keep track of, if the order is being prepared, if the pizza's baking, if the pizza's out for delivery, that sort of stuff. So we're going to declare a private variable, a string that's an order status. We're going to call it order status. But again, not just a string. We need to surround that string with this mutable live data thing. And again, this has to go in our view model. So in our view model, we'll put that in there. Okay, so that's what we're going to do with the assignment this week. Now, you also have to have a special constructor for this. This is often called a singleton constructor in that it checks, and we only want one of these objects around. So we need this, we call this constructor here with a name to create this, and it checks if it's null, and if it's not, it creates a new one. Otherwise, it returns the current one. And this just allows, and we might have multiple data activities out there observing this variable, and we only want one of these instantiated. So this will allow so that if like 2 different activities or 2 different fragments are both calling a constructor to create this object, only one will actually be created here. So that's what this does. It's often called a singleton because only a single version of it. It checks if it is there, and if it's not, it creates it. Otherwise, it returns what's already there. Okay, so that's our view model. Let's go back to Oh, well, no, let's look at our code. And so we do something similar here with our order status. We just have get order status, and it checks if the order status, if this variable is null. If so, it instantiates a new one of it. Otherwise, it just returns the current instance of it here. So again, I'm not going to go too much into that, but we just need that as part of this code. But this is basically what we'll be using is this part up here. Okay, let's look at the next step. So once we have the LiveData object set up, we need to observe the LiveData object. And so usually we do this in the onCreate method of our main activity here. So that's what we're going to do. And here's the Java version here. So here's our activity. They have a different activity, but we'll put it in our main activity here. And here's our onCreate method here. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a observer object here, and it's going to have one method in it, an onChange method. So this is like kind of creating a like we do with buttons when we create an onClick method, a listener for buttons. It's kind of similar format here. We declare an observer, give it some name, and create a new observer here. And again, we're observing a string because the variable we're watching is a string variable. So these are all strings here. And we'll be given a new string there. Now then once we have this declared, this observer declared, we want to tell it to observe the data, the live data. So we use our view model, and we use our method in there, and we call observe, and we pass it this observer. So now what does this look like in our pizza class? So let's go here. So again, remember, we declared this order status, and we created this get order status variable that will get that variable. So now in our main activity, let's look at that. Okay, so we're in a main activity here. We're at main activity. We're in the onCreate method, and we've created our view model already. It's called main view model, and we've set that up. So that's set up. And then we have the code here for managing our seek bar, our code here for doing our button, our place order button, our code here to set up the listener for the on-click for the add to order button. And here's the new code right here for us. That we're going to look at. So again, first we're going to declare an observer class. So we're going to say an observer class here. We're going to give it some name of the variable name, and we'll use that later on. And we say new observer, so we're going to call the create method. And again, since we're observing a string method, this template has to have a string in it. Okay, then once we have that, we declare an in-kernel class, similar again to what we do up here for button listeners. We declare an internal class, and in that class we create an onChange method. And that has to have one variable, and that's a string method, because assuming that we're observing a string. And then we can give that variable any name we want. And so anytime the string changes, this onChange will be called, and this new status, this string will be the new value of whatever we're observing, the string we're observing. And so in this case, it's a status information. We just want to put that out in the order. So we have this text order field. I'm going to just append this new status to our text order field, and we'll see what that does in just a sec. Okay, so this is our onChange method for our observer. We declare that. Now we have to link that to this view model. And remember, we have a variable here for our view model already. Where was it? We declared our view model up here, main view model. So we're going to have to tie into that. So now that we've declared the observer, we're going to say view model dot get order status. And again, in view model, that's what we called our method to instantiate or set up our variable here. So we call get order status, and then we go dot observe, and we're going to want to say we're going to now start observing this, and then we have to tell what observer to use. And now we use this observer. So the observer we set up here, that's what we use. And so this will say tie this observer to this method or this data in our view model. So whenever this data so whenever the order status changes, this will be called, this observer will be called, and in the onChange method, the string will be whatever the new value is for this. So again, this is the code that's needed to do this. So let's just see what this, well, let's go back and we're going to do one more thing, I guess. Okay. Now we want to update the LiveData object and change it. And they do something here. And sometimes you might have a data in the background updating. You might have the app running on multiple devices, and someone else might be updating or posting messages, and that'll get your updates. But for our pizza order, we're going to use something different for updates. We're going to just use a timer, basically. So in our view model, we're going to create a timer class that will just tick off every couple seconds, and we'll just keep changing the status. And I'm not going to go into too much detail of what this timer class does, but this is the timer class here. We're going to run this in a separate thread so that it doesn't tie up the UI thread, and it's got to run independently, and we use a special runnable type for that, and we declare a class that implements runnable. We create one of those things. We need a handler to handle this class, and we then have a little method. This start pizza timer creates the handler, creates the pizza timer runnable thing, and this will run in its own thread, and then tells the handler to start the pizza timer up in 1 second. In 1,000 milliseconds. And then once the pizza timer runs, again, it will post a message, and it will often then set its have the handler post another message in another 20 or 2 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever. And to keep track of where the timer is, we have this count here that counts kind of time with it. So when after the first time, it then says the pizza's baking. The second time, the timer goes off. It says pizza's cooking. And then the third time, it just says the pizza's ready to eat here. So again, I'm not going to go over too much. It's not that important what this does. But again, this is the code, and it goes inside your view model. So the whole thing, even this class, this private internal class, can all sit inside your view model. There are different ways of doing it, but I thought this would be the least hassle for you to set up. So once this sets up, let's see what happens. Okay, so let's see how this will work. I've run the pizza app here. I've ordered 2 pizzas here, and now I'm going to hit the place order method. And I want it to update the data. So now I'm not clicking anything. It says pizza is baking. I wait a couple seconds, says pizza is cooking. Wait a couple seconds, pizza is ready to eat. Really fast pizza prep. The timer is done. And so it'll go through this, and so it'll update those 3 statuses as we go. So that's what we want to see there. Now, the one other thing you may have to do here is in your code for your model view, when we call the place order, we have this place order method. When we call that, we want to start the pizza timer. So down here, you want to set start pizza timer here and set that up. So, and I'm actually also calling the order status and posting the value so that initially this says order placed, and then we start the pizza value here. Now, within the pizza timer, when we're changing this order status, even though it's a string, it's a special type of string, so we can't just assign it a value. So in order to assign it a value, we've got to do a order status.post value. Now, you'll read there's something called set value and post value. If you're in the main activity, you can use set value when you're in the UI string, but we're in a separate thread here, so we have to use post value to update that here. Okay, so that's your overview. And that's the 3 parts of updating LiveData objects here is we create the LiveData instance, we create the observer, and then we attach the observer to it, and then we can update the data, and it should work. So Now let's return here. Now there's a couple other views. Now this is another video that kind of goes over LiveData. It's by Lila Fujiwara. She also, I had her listed in here, that she does a really nice overview of view models. She's a Google developer, and she has a whole series of nice videos on what this new development or this new system called Jetpack, which includes LiveData. So this is just an overview of that. So if you want to learn more or hear another person's view of LiveData, you can watch her video here. So that's your introduction. Now for the assignment this week, you'll be working and making these same changes. So watch for that.